2, 1, you're on.
Hello and welcome to our third virtual nursing conference titled Intrapreneurial Spirit in Nursing and Women in Health IT. Today's program is made possible by the HIMSS New York State Chapter Nursing and Diversity Committee's collaboration. This conference will highlight innovative ways of transforming nursing work, mentoring, and providing nurses with viable paths to spur nurse-led innovation within the healthcare ecosystem. It will also examine the use of clinical communication integrations. I'd like to extend my sincere gratitude to our planning committee, Alexis Balingokang, Marianne Connor, Mary Joy Garcia-Dia, our moderators, Eleanor Regret, Roy Rellesiva, Alizia McMyers, our producers, Nick Cristiano and Joe DeSario, our board of directors, and our president, Anthony Ferrante. At this time, I'd like to invite Anthony Ferrante to provide us with directions on how to use Microsoft Teams. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. As you can see on the slide here, live captioning is available. We also have a Q&A function, so anybody that's in attendance will be able to ask questions. We'll be able to field them and then have our moderators work with our speakers and be able to relay them on and try to get them answered for you as quickly as possible. If you run into any technical difficulties, click on the refresh if you're viewing from your web browser. As a reminder, this event will be recorded and be available not only on our website, but also on our YouTube channel, New York State HIMSS Chapter. We welcome anybody that's not currently a member to come and join the New York State Chapter. Or if you are a member of another chapter, sign up and become a member of our chapter. Real quick and easy to do. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me directly and I'll be more than happy to help sign you up as a member. We would welcome new members to our chapter. I would also like to take a moment to thank our sponsor for today. Nurse Care has agreed to help us here, and Mr. Michael Lang, who is the CEO, has provided us with some financial assistance and at the same time the slide. And I would recommend, if anybody has the opportunity, to go out there and check out their site and take a look at what they have to offer, especially to the nursing community. Next slide, please. What I'd like to do is to introduce our first moderator, Ellen Ingerath, and have her introduce the presenters that will be coming up. Thank you, everybody, for your time and attention, and enjoy the presentation that has been prepared.
Thank you, Tony, for the introduction. I'm Eleanor Regret, and a nurse informaticist and a committee member with the Nursing and Diversity Committee with HIMSS New York. I had the opportunities to work with our panelists as a fellow nurse innovator. So let's meet them. The first up is Marion Leary. Marion, please introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm Marion Leary. I am the Director of Innovation at the University of Pennsylvania School of Nursing.
Thank you, Marion. The next is Joshua Littlejohn. May you take your introduction.
Sure. Hi everyone. Thanks, Ellen. My name is Joshua Littlejohn, and I am a product manager for IntelliCare here in Boston, Massachusetts, focusing specifically on the nurse experience. Sorry.
And last but not least, our third panelist, Hiam Nadal.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. My name is Hiam Nadal, and I'm the director for the Center of Innovations in Care Delivery at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston.
Thank you, Joshua, Marion, and Hiam, for joining us this afternoon. The first question is to Hiam. You work in a large academic medical center in Boston. Can you tell us how you've transformed nurse-led innovation in your organization?
Sure, I would love to. So our guiding principles really are, if you look at most inventions or innovation, it's usually coming from people that have experienced a problem or are closest to the problem. And so therefore it makes total sense that we involve our nurses who are at the front lines, are with patients 24/7, acutely understand their problems, as well as the families. But there hasn't been a formal way to do that, and we developed a platform to be able to hear and elicit from the front lines what their pain points are and what their solutions, so we can help them develop it further.
Thank you for that insight on how we can engage patient and family members in innovation in our practice. Joshua, we've all heard that innovation is a numbers game, and that the top of the funnel has to be very large in order to get any results out the other end. That is to say, most of the ideas fail. Why then would an organization spend money on hackathon when most of the ideas won't be visible? What is the value proposition, and what is the ROI?
Sure. So actually, Hiam, I'm so glad that you actually went right before me, because Hiam is a great example of an Hiam and Mass General are a great example of an organization that has taken this idea and really built out some infrastructure around empowering nurses. But it's, even though Mass General has built this program, if I'm like a new nurse and I'm coming in and I'm focused on patient care, and nurses are natural born innovators. We innovate all the time at the bedside. Like, how do you organize your IV line so that the patient doesn't rip them out 5 times in a shift, sort of thing? Or how do you help somebody out of bed and back into the bed safely, and sort of streamline all of that care? We're doing that all of the time. But if you don't have any structured way or introduction to a unit like Hiam's, then you're constantly stuck in this loop of like reinventing the wheel, because probably 10 nurses before you, or even maybe 100 nurses before you, have already come along and tried to figure out how I organize all my IV lines so that my patients don't rip it out 5 times a day, sort of thing, right? And so I really look at hackathons as, I'm going to use sort of a slightly off-color analogy here, like an entry or a gateway drug, right? Because it's an introduction to innovation about using those clinical skills, taking that mindset, applying it somewhere else. And for those who are not familiar with hackathons in general, they're a sort of a time-limited design sprint, generally over a weekend. Hiam and Marion just led one this past weekend, a massive nursing-focused hackathon, and really it's to focus on those problems within a short period of time, see what you can come out the other end with, and it's a starting point, right? We're not going to have like a fully baked product come out the other end, sort of thing. One, it is a way to introduce people to this idea, to get them revved up about about innovation and about taking their clinical skill set and applying it in some other fashion. But if you look at the labor sort of statistics and musings of that are coming out of we'll say the HR markets, or various reports, people of a certain age should expect to change jobs. I've seen as often for the entirety of their career. So how does that really impact nurses and nursing as a career, right? So we go in, we're at the bedside. Is that like the end of our journey? Do we always find ourselves at the bedside? I myself certainly have not found myself at the bedside forever and ever and ever. But certainly in the context of a nursing shortage and ongoing, continuing on through COVID, in the context of that nursing shortage, people are fighting over talent, right? how do you get them to stay within your organization? Because they may not stay at the bedside, right? Be okay, because they still are familiar with your organization. They know your policies, they know your workflows, they're familiar with the other folks in that ecosystem, the stakeholders. Why would you want them to leave? You know, okay, so if they go over to a travel agency and then they're doing travel nursing, they're still at the bedside, but you've lost that person, sort of thing. They're still in the workforce, they're still at the bedside, they're still taking care of patients. And I think from a level that's great, but from an individual institutional level, we really should be thinking of ways to keep our talent even, you know, within our walls or within our sort of 6 degrees of separation. And the reason in my mind is, you know, really because I'll give you an example from, you know, IntelliCare. We find, so IntelliCare, just to set the scene, is gig-based company where we provide a platform that allows nurses to work when and where they want. Essentially, it's sort of like Lyft. So if our nurses were like Lyft drivers, then they can work when and where they want. They can pick up shifts, and we're focused on post-acute facilities. So we're talking, I don't want to work any weekends. I don't want to work any holidays. I want to be with my family. You're completely able to do that. And one of the pieces of feedback that we get by enabling that flexibility is, you know, oh, hey, I'm a nurse educator and I had to move away from the bedside ages ago. I focus mostly on my students and bringing up the next generation of nurse, but I really like to dabble over, not dabble, I didn't say dabble. We all have licenses, it's not dabbling. We're going back to the bedside. We're keeping those people, you know, engaged in an organization and at the bed in some way, shape, or form, right? So, you know, I appreciate you coming for me because you stay, but I'm also super interested in hearing what Hiyam have to say in relation to like keeping nurses, sort of shifting it and being like, oh, bedside care is my side gig instead of like my main focus, right?
Thanks, Joshua.
Sure.
As part of the and part of the hackathon this weekend, we knew that one of the biggest tracks that we had to focus was sustainability of the nursing workforce. And this leads us to Marion, who has been involved in nurse-led accelerators at Penn. What does this look like in an educational setting, and how can nursing schools begin to educate nurses in health and healthcare innovation?
Sure, thanks. And thanks for having me here. I'm really excited to be on this panel with my colleagues, Joshua and Hiyam. So it's a great question. You know, I think in terms of educating the next generation of nurse innovators, it has to start in the undergrad curriculum. It has to start early. And we're really trying to do this in a variety of ways through infusing innovation throughout the whole curriculum from undergrad through to graduate and doctoral level. And one of those ways is the Penn Nursing Innovation Accelerator. And we've really created this as an educational opportunity for both our students, but also faculty and clinicians at our Penn Medicine hospitals. And so we feel really strongly that we want this process, even if the teams who apply don't make it into the actual accelerator program themselves, we want the process to be a learning process. We want it to be an educational opportunity so that they can take those skills and then apply to other programs. And so it's a 3-round process where round 1, we're really helping the applicants focus on how to put together a problem statement. What are all the different components that they need to think about when applying to different innovation programs? So what's their, again, what's their problem statement? Who's their population? What's their innovation? What are their goals and milestones? What are all the things that they need, all the components that they need to put together a really clear application addressing their problem and potential solution? And then we move on to round 2 of the Innovation Accelerator process, where the teams that made it through from round 1 have to put together a business model canvas as well as a budget and budget justification. most of these people who are applying will not know what a business model canvas is, and that's fine. We partnered with our Penn Wharton librarian who does a 1-hour education session for our applicants. She runs through what a business model canvas is, how to fill it out, and where to find all the data and components that you'll need to put that together. Business model canvas is really important. These are all the things that you're going to need to know to move any sort of project or company forward. So getting these applicants this information and exposing them to this type of information early will only help them get more acquainted with it, feel more comfortable with it, and be able to apply it again to other application processes. And then finally, after round 2, anybody who makes it through round 2 has to do a final pitch and pitch deck and do a pitch in front of a variety of investors, VCs, nurse leaders, entrepreneurs, etc., from all over the country. And so we work with our finalists to put together their pitch. We give them a templated pitch deck. We have a practice pitch session where they get feedback from a variety of folks from our innovation and entrepreneurship community. They can iterate on their pitch and pitch deck, and then they go into the final pitch feeling more prepared and being able to put together a really stellar performance. And then, so that's sort of the application process. And then once the teams make it through to the actual Innovation Accelerator program itself, it is a 10-month process where they receive funding, they receive mentorship, and they receive education. And it's all curated and tailored to their individual team needs. And we work with them over that 10 months. I meet with them monthly, the mentors meet with them monthly, and we really help them to scale up or scale out their product or process or whatever that innovation is. It's really important to understand that nurses, a lot of the nurses that are applying for this program are either, in school full-time, working full-time and in school, sort of have families. Like, they have a lot of barriers, and I think that's one of the reasons that we haven't seen a lot of nurses spinning out their innovations, is because it takes so much extra time and energy to do it after they're doing all of these other things. And so we really, even though 10 months I think is a little long for an accelerator program, we're seeing that these nurses really need this extra time and support. And actually, we'll probably stay with our accelerator groups for much longer than 10 months, just because I want to make sure that they're successful. And especially in this era of COVID, they've already had so many barriers to being able to do things like this, that we really want to make it as easy and have them feel as supported as possible. And again, it's all with a lens of educating both the next generation of nurse innovators and entrepreneurs, but also our current generation of clinicians and faculty as well.
Thank you, Marion. As you said, mentorship and support is very key, and this leads to Hiyam. What type of mentoring and support do you give nurses to advance their work, especially being in the hospital setting? And what barriers do you encounter, if any, or what barriers have you seen that they've encountered, and how have you guided them through that?
Great. So interestingly enough, I think a lot of what Marion has stated is still holds true, except she's starting at a much earlier phase of education. So I find that nurses who are already out in the field need lots of education. So the initial process that we put into place initially was really just to sort of understand the baseline knowledge of nurses, what those pain points were. Did they understand what we meant by innovation, for example? And then, you had to get leadership buy-in. So a lot of the problems that we actually solved were also problems, not just for the frontline staff, but for the hospital. And the reason we did that is because we wanted to build lots of credibility. So for example, we tackled pressure injuries, hospital falls, central line infections, and things like that, so we can first build our credibility. Now I'm happy to say that we have this really robust platform where they can put in their pain points and solutions, but then the same staff come in and vote for those ideas. So it's all around crowd voting. And so whatever rises to the top, then we ask those people to submit a full application like Marion does. You have to get leadership buy-in from the beginning, or that could be a very big barrier for you. And we've been able to do that successfully. In fact, leadership is very excited. This last round that we did, there were multiple committees formed to try to tackle a lot of the issues that were coming out from the front line. They'd never had a platform like that, and they heard all of that, which was very exciting. But even when I incubate and accelerate the ideas, like Marion said, we have that program and we mentor them all along. One of the barriers is actually the staff themselves. They don't see themselves as innovators. And this is so new to them. It's really quite, they're like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. But we walk them through it slowly. Again, we spend as much time as we need for the winners that get the money to be awarded. And then, you know, the other barrier, you have to build an entire ecosystem. So the mentorship, getting the ideas, first of all, in a formal way, then mentoring them. And then what do you do after that? So we have VCs, we're trying to build venture capitalists, we're trying to build other funding sources, patent attorneys, et cetera. You have to build the entire ecosystem or it can be a barrier.
Thank you, Hiam. The next question is for Joshua. As we all know, when COVID-19 hit, we had to do a lot of virtual programs. Prior to that, I know Nurse Hack for Health, I think, was in person. Virtual or in-person hackathons, which is better? And as an organizer, which one you felt had more obstacles, and how did you go about dealing that with the team?
Sure. I'm going to jump on that, but I just wanted to piggyback off of what Marion and Hiam have been saying around entrepreneurship. And I think, in the title of this event, we called out entrepreneurship, but I think that what we're really getting at, particularly from this perspective, is intrapreneurship, right? And developing that sense of innovation within an organization. And speaking to my previous question about ROI and why you would do this sort of stuff, it's because from a tech licensing perspective. So if we're talking about the university level, like Marion, I used to actually be over at Penn and be in the tech transfer office, where you're looking at the innovations that have come out of the university for patentability and commercializability. All of that applies all equally for MGH and any other hospital system. You also can create technologies and patent those and commercialize them and send them through VC. That's a completely other alternate revenue stream for you, right? Rather than just, providing care to patients sort of thing, and surgeries and, all stuff. So, all right, so hackathons, in person or virtual. I find that there's benefits and drawbacks to both of these. And the biggest benefit for in-person events, I would say, is the energy, right? Like having everybody in the room, and you're physically taking, whatever your mode is, whether it's whiteboarding or if it's sticky notes all over the place sort of thing. But it's like, being able to sit next to somebody and be like, oh my God, I had the same idea. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, what if we did this? And what if we did that? Oh, I really like this idea, but let's go a different route. And then trying to make those connections in person. There's just something about that, being co-located, and trying this entire process most of the time for the first time, particularly if you're a clinician, right? Of course, we have some serial hackathoners, myself included, so as well as Hiam and Marion. So it's nice to share that new energy with somebody else. The challenges, though, are that you know, you got to drive, you got to fly. Like these things don't happen all over the place. Nurse hackathons are not like a dime a dozen sort of thing, right? So if it is located in, you know, New Jersey or Philly or Boston or wherever, you got to get on some transit or get in your car, drive there. There's, you know, housing, all that sort of stuff. You have to account for that for a lot of people. And I think, as you pointed out, when we shifted to virtual for, you know, everything, basically, when COVID hit, one of the silver linings or the benefits from organizing these events is really the ability to include a much wider, when I say much wider, I mean global reach, right? So there's no, you know, let me set the scene a little bit. I've worked with MIT Hacking Medicine, and specifically there's sort of a spin-off series of events that was MIT COVID-19 Challenge. And then I did another one, MIT Hacking Racism in Healthcare, which the follow-up event to that is happening this weekend. That's a sort of event number 2 in that series. But, you know, our draw of participants was literally global, you know, 85 plus countries, you know, a participant base of 2,000, you know, 3,000 applicants, 2,000 participants in an online event that happens over a weekend. Where are you going to do an event that size in person, right? We're talking like you need a stadium for 2,000 people in order to do that. But if you know, but the but to that is we did it, right? We transferred it into a virtual event. It scaled, and it was fantastic to see teams from all over come together and then work on these, identify problems and work on solutions. And you know, any one team could have people from 3 different continents working across time zones and going at it, sort of thing. For the MIT COVID-19 Challenge Series, we even did one in Latin America where we had live transcribing into both so the event was in English, but we had translation into Portuguese and Spanish as well. Which again, you know, how are you really going to be doing that in, you know, in person sort of thing? I could think of ways, you know, we could innovate, but the idea is really access, you know. So when we talk about the shift to virtual, I really think access. That comes with a caveat. Like, I know that not everybody has a high-speed internet connection. I know that not everybody can afford the hardware to participate in these, but it does expand it, at least, you know, from one U.S. city to multiples, and then across, you know, like we're talking continents sort of thing. So I find, like I said, I find benefits and drawbacks on both sides. I still think that overall, you know, I don't know if I can say I have for one or the other. I really don't. And I don't know. Hiam organized both Nurse Hack for Health in person and virtually. I don't know what you would think about that. You know, as well. Marion, do you have a preference either for in person or virtual?
Well, I love people and being around people. So, no, you know what, the best of both worlds is to have one face-to-face and one virtual moving forward. That way we can address everything that you've said, and then it would really meet all of our needs to be with people and networking and the energy, and yet have a global reach within the virtual setting.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think, like you mentioned, Joshua, there's so many positives and negatives to, not negatives, positives and difficulties for both. Like having the opportunity to be able to hack with so many people from all over the world that otherwise we never would have been able to collaborate with and interact with has really made Nurse Hack for Health just a special event. I mean, Nurse Hackathons are already a special event, and the first bunch I've ever gone to were in person, and you know, I have lifelong friends because of it, and have made a community, and have really found the nursing profession to be something I am so incredibly proud of because of these in-person events. They have now translated into also the virtual platform, but it is, like Joshua said, just a different energy. So definitely, if we can do like Hiam said and go one virtual, one in person, it'll be the best of all worlds. And I think there was a question, we're talking about the Nurse Hack for Health, which is a virtual hackathon that started because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The first one was in May of 2020, and it's sponsored by SUNCIAL, which is the Society of Nurse Scientists, Innovators, Entrepreneurs, and Leaders, which both Hiam and I are on the board of, and then also Johnson & Johnson and Microsoft. And we just had our most recent one this past weekend.
Okay. Last question from me. What does innovation education encompasses? I happen to learn or know about innovation in my master's program because there was a program with us, Design for America, and the problem was patient falling, and they were gearing it towards engineer. And I said, oh, well, as nurses, this is the #1 issue we encounter home and in the hospital. And I joined it, and lo and behold, we were the only team that had 2 nurses. And, you know, you talked about the discussion of nurses not knowing how to do business models. And this program actually kind of made me understand how it is important for nurses to be well-rounded in this process. So how do you talk about innovation in education in your programs?
Sure. So it's a great question. And I really see, you know, innovation education in 2 buckets. Your active learning bucket, which is what we've been talking about with hackathons and incubators and accelerators and all of that other like innovation challenges and stuff, things where you can really, like the Nurse Hack for Health this weekend, just dive in and learn by doing. The other bucket, of course, is your traditional classroom learning, and also for, you know, medical, nursing, and health professions, the practical bedside learning out in the community, in the research labs, etc. All of that encompasses education, and all of that is what we're trying to focus on at Penn Nursing to give our students that well-rounded innovation education that really they're all craving. And so at Penn Nursing, you know, we started out with a foundational course that I teach called Innovation and Health Foundations of Design Thinking, and that is open to our upper level undergraduate students at Penn Nursing, but also all students across campus, both upper level undergrads and graduate level students, can all take that class. We've had students from nursing, from engineering, from medicine, from design, from vet and dental and Wharton business, like from all over campus, coming together and taking this class to learn about the foundations of design thinking and to create solutions to real world problems. So these students pick a health or healthcare topic, they go out, they interview, they observe, and they co-design with stakeholders in the communities that they're working in throughout the entire semester, you know, using the human-centered approach of design thinking. And that really sets the foundation of the education that we're teaching our students, but we're also infusing these things throughout the entire curriculum. So in one of our pediatric undergrad nursing courses, one of their assignments now is based on the design thinking methodology. We are using human-centered design as a foundation for our new DNP executive leadership program. We're co-creating courses with colleagues in design and in engineering. You know, we're really trying to think about how we can provide more coursework, more opportunities for our students, both within Penn Nursing, but also throughout the whole entire Penn community.
Okay. Thank you, panelists. I'm gonna have Alizia McMyers take over. If there's any questions from the audience, please ask away.
Alicia needs to turn on her camera.
I think you're on mute.
You're on mute, Alicia.
Okay. Oh, you're muted again, Alicia.
Alizia, you're muted. I don't think she can hear us. Well, I'm just going to chime in real quick. We have a question, and I'd like to ask Hiam and Marion if you can just, there was a question about your respective programs, their names and their locations. So if you can just provide that information for our audience.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Yep. So the current platform that we're using is called the Etherdome Challenge platform, and the Etherdome is where the first general anesthetic was given. So we thought it was appropriate that we named the platform after that. The museum has been memorialized right now. So, but that's called the Etherdome Challenge at mgh.harvard.edu if anybody wants to look that up.
Yeah, and the program I was referring to is just originally called our Penn Nursing Innovation Accelerator Program. And that is right now only open to Penn Nursing faculty, students, and our Penn Medicine clinical colleagues.
Which I would add actually is a great reason why you should join, because those are open by and large to lots of different kinds of people. I think actually if you Google like, there's plenty of lists out there. Again, not all nursing focused or even healthcare focused, but if you want to find an organization that does put on healthcare focused hackathon and events, you can look up MIT Hacking Medicine, Google MIT Hacking Medicine, and that organization works in collaboration with plenty of other organizations to put on health-related events that nurses are. For instance, there's one this weekend where we are engineering health equity is the theme. Yes.
Yeah, to Josh's point, there are plenty of opportunities for nurses to get involved in innovation programming, from hackathons to accelerators. If you're interested in these topics, look at your local community. I know one of our local health universities, Jefferson, they just had their health hack a couple weeks ago. One of my nursing students went to that hackathon and reported that there weren't that many nurses there. So these spaces, they really, they want nurses, they need nurses, and it's a great way, like Josh said, to sort of get your feet wet into the innovation space and what it means to, be involved in these types of active learning environments.
Yeah, Marion, and and Hiam have, I think one of the reasons why we might not see nurses at these events is because of something that Hiam said, which is we don't see ourselves as innovators as at that table, right? And so if there are other folks on this call who are, heads of programs or they work at other healthcare systems, if you have any sort of contact with nurses, my action would just be, be a cheerleader for nurses in innovation, entrepreneurship, in intrapreneurship, and recognize that we add value all along the spectrum, right? So whether you're a nursing student in a nursing school and you are looking to combine this with an MBA eventually and you have got grant plans, fantastic, good for you. But if you've been a nurse for 30, 40 years, and you are considering something else or leaving the bedside or retiring, know that there is another world for you where you can completely apply all of those skills. We just need and for help them see the value that all of their experiences really creates, I guess, the alternative value other than the face value, which is, oh, you're a nurse taking care of patients, sort of thing.
Okay, as we wrap up our session on nurse entrepreneurship and innovation, I would like to thank our panelists, Joshua Littlejohn, Marion Leary, and Hiam Nadel, for spending their afternoon with us as well as our fellow HIMSS New York chapter participants and other participants joining us this afternoon. And I would like to introduce, before we go to our next session, Eileen Achikosu, who's going to provide us a 5-minute self-care before we go to our next session, which is very important. So take it away, Eileen. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Dr. Eileen Achikosu. I'm a Reiki master, and currently I'm the VP and COO for New York Healing Arts Institute. Now we're going to do a short exercise for well-being. Can I have the first slide, please? Okay. So my question to you is, how is your health? Health is not merely the absence of disease or symptoms. Health is a state of optimal well-being, vitality, wholeness, and how we take care of ourselves. So all living things have energy, prana, chi, kai. That energy should flow easily through the body for our well-being. So that would be good energy in and bad or old energy out. When energy is blocked, it causes stasis of energy, resulting in possible problems and illness. It's important to foster a state of balance, a body, mind, and soul connection for a healthy flow of energy. Our bodies need to take in what is nourishing and eliminate what's not beneficial. That would be stress, for example. So how can we do this? Meditation, yoga, Tai Chi, Reiki, and more techniques use relaxation and breathing. I'm going to walk you through a relaxation and breathing exercise right now. Can I do the next slide? And the next slide. Thank you. So first, I want you to place one hand on your chest and one hand on your abdomen. Close your eyes and take a slow breath. Notice which hand rises more. With abdominal breathing, your chest should only rise slightly with your abdomen. So let's try it again. Inhale slowly and deeply through your nose for the count of 4. Exhale slowly and softly through your mouth, also to the count of 4. As you breathe, are your shoulders tight? Do you feel them tight? Relax your shoulders. 9 times out of 10, when you try to do these breathing relaxation, you can notice that your shoulders are tense, your jaw, your eyes. So just relax. Now, as you relax your shoulders, we're going to breathe slowly and deeply through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Open your mouth and exhale slowly and softly through your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Use each exhalation as an opportunity to let go of tension. So now we're going to start from the beginning. I want you to close your eyes, relax your shoulders, your face, your jaw. Come on, close your eyes. Inhale slowly and deeply through your nose to the count of 4. 2, 3, 4. Pause. Open your mouth and exhale slowly and softly to the count of 4. 2, 3, 4. Pause. Again, inhale slowly and deeply through your nose. Think breathing in relaxation. 3, 4. Pause. Open your mouth and exhale slowly and softly, like you're breathing out tension. And pause. Last time. Your eyes are closed. Relax your shoulders. Inhale slowly and deeply through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause. Open your mouth and exhale slowly and softly. 2, 3, 4. Pause. How does it feel? Do you feel right now a little bit more centered, a little bit more relaxed? If we could do this 2.5-minute exercise 3 to 4 times a day, before or after a difficult meeting, it would help us to let go of negative tension and relax with new energy. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of this conference. I would now like to introduce our next moderator, that is Roy Rellesiva. And Roy, can you please take over?
All right. Thank you so much, Eileen, for the introduction. My name is Roy Rellesiva. I'm an informatics nurse and a clinical solutions specialist for a healthcare technology company focused on providing applications to improve best practices. I'm happy to be here today as a moderator for this wonderful event. I'd like to kindly ask our next panelist, Obioma Richardson, to briefly introduce herself.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Obioma Richardson here. I am an IT professional for a long time. I am founder of and president of Watch Her Win in New York City. And glad to be here.
All right. So first, thank you so much, Obioma, for joining us today and shining a light on what it means to be part of a clinical communications integrations in the healthcare industry. My first question to you is, what does being part of a clinical communications integrations team entail, and how did you serve as a leader in your work?
Yes, so to start, I actually started my healthcare IT career back at Planned Parenthood, and understanding what it meant to be part of an integrations team at that time was understanding how the staff worked. Because me, myself, I'm not a nurse, right? So that comes with a lot of other educational background that you have to understand on how a clinical team works. So it entails communicating, it entails being an active listener, and it entails understanding what is the best thing or product for the patient.
Excellent, and it's great that you say those things. I mean, I currently work in a company that focuses on enhancing clinical communications and integration, so I understand how important it is to be communicative, to be an active listener, and what is best for a company. My next question is, can you talk us through some of the projects where you've optimized efficiency and productivity? And can you share your top 3 key achievements from those?
Yeah, so two of my proudest projects when I was in the healthcare industry. One was to implement this system called Optivity. And Optivity was a communication system that the the access transfer team needed to make sure they transferred patients accordingly. My other proudest and best project was integrating the nurse call system, Ronco, that I used at another location. And we had to integrate Connexall with the nurse call system. And I'm smiling because with those 2 projects, I learned so much about patient care and the tech side of patient care. I was so involved where understanding for Optivity, first of all, if a patient could not communicate with that access transfer team, that could be a patient's life. And I mean, there were patients coming from all around the world. So for me to be part of this project team and actually being a leader and implementing it because of my telecommunication experience, that was just unreal for me to understand that I had such a big impact on patient care and making sure someone's life was saved in the right amount of time. And then for the nurse call system, first of all, anyone who is a patient at the hospital and you need to call your nurse, or if you are a visitor and you need to call the nurse for that, for anyone you're visiting. I didn't realize the work that it took on the technical side to make sure that that system ran. And for me to be a leader and making sure that that system ran efficiently when I was at my last place of employment at the hospital, that was such a huge deal for me. At the time, my grandfather was in the hospital very sick, and me managing that system, I 1000% understood what it meant for patients to be able to communicate in a timely manner. So integrating a system to make sure that that communication is efficient, so that way the nurses, who are everyday heroes, are able to provide for their patients. I mean, those two projects were just, forget it. I don't think I can ever forget the work that I actually put into those projects and how I helped the nurses become better efficient with being able to take care of the patients.
Yeah, that is a great answer. I mean, absolutely. You make a great point earlier that you said you learned about patient care on the technical side and learning what happens on the back end, but also the front end. I mean, we become so occupied with our technology and our infrastructure that we don't realize how impactful we are with the decisions we make on the technical side, that it ultimately affects patient care. I have another question for you. So what were some of the defining moments in your career that led to a positive impact for women in the field of healthcare IT and telecom?
Well, I would backtrack a little bit for the telecom piece. The defining moment in my career is when my AVP, named Jacqueline Johnson, she put me on the front line, and I had to manage a entire system administration input, and I was the lead. I was scared. It was my first time really managing an operation like that. I had to make sure that all of our centers could be cut over in a timely manner, because again, it's patient care, right? You can't lose connectivity, right? People need to make appointments. That was defining for me because there was another woman who trusted me and saw something that I didn't see in myself at the time. And she said, you can do this. So as a woman, to have that responsibility, and I would say that power to make sure that something is put in place to make sure that centers are operating correctly and patients are getting through to make sure they can make appointments and, get to their providers. Another factor would be when I was working at HSS for the nurse call manager, and sitting in a room full of women who are nurse VPs, the nurse managers. That was defining for me, because what I saw is you have all of these women who are at the table making sure that patient care is going round the clock and top notch. And here I am, I'm in IT, right? And I'm sitting in the room with these women, and they are listening to me. They needed me. They encouraged me to speak up, because there were times where I just, I didn't speak up because I'm like, I know what I'm talking about, but because I don't have that title, I don't want to feel like I'm speaking out of turn, but they encouraged me. So those two areas right there are the most positive impact for me, because it's important for women, no matter what industry you are in, to encourage each other, because that's the only way we can continue to grow. So those two moments, and I still keep in touch with some of the nurses from HSS, and they always tell me how much they miss me. They always tell me how thankful they were that I actually worked with them to make sure that their job was easier in any way that I could. So those two moments definitely led to positive impact for me.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for highlighting those defining moments. I mean, it seems like you made a huge impact as an advocate for women in the healthcare technology and communication field. But, like you said, even without those titles, if you're knowledgeable, you know what you're talking about, you're more than qualified to speak up and have your own opinion. So I wanted to switch gears here and focus a bit on the topic of diversity.
Okay.
Could you please tell us about your experiences where diversity and inclusion have transformed the workplace and improved employee performance?
Well, I've had some tough experiences, to be totally transparent here. But what I will say is, when you think about diversity and inclusion, it's not just a race matter, right? The race part is very important, because as a Black woman in IT, it's very hard to hit a glass ceiling, right? There's not many of us that are vice presidents or CIOs or leaders. So you in turn have to become your own leader and say, okay, I can do this, but I can do it without a title. That's number one. Where I would say diversity and inclusion has had a positive transformation in the workplace for me is where I saw the lack of. So if I saw that there was a lack of maybe women sticking together, maybe women of color stick together, I would just come up with ideas, and I would go to the top and say, hey, maybe we should do this to showcase the amount of women we have in IT. So one particular time, I emailed my CIO and I said, it's March, it's Women's History Month. We have a lot of women in IT in all different areas. We should just do something as simple as taking a group picture to showcase how many women in IT there are in your department, and how is that going? That's major for you as being a leader, a woman, and a CIO. So something as simple as that is, I'm the type of person that I'm going to speak up. If I see something lacking, I'm like, hey, we're lacking in this place. Let me make connections with the right people, and let's just come together as one. So that's, I think it transformed it in a way where now the woman within the IT department, they felt more inspired and encouraged, like, yeah, I'm a woman in IT, and this was a good thing. And after that, you start to build relationships, and it's like, hey, Obi, hi, because they remember that one thing that someone did to showcase who you are. So that was something I think I did that really helped transform specific workplace I was in.
Those are great examples. Like you said, it's not just a race matter. It seems like you went in there, you were fearless, and you found your voice, and you're able to speak up when it matters. And it's the little things that can contribute to change in any workplace. There's a sense of comfort you gain being in your work environment, looking around and seeing people that either look like you or look like you can relate to, for yourself. Seeing other women, you look at those women and see how they're doing. They look so accomplished, and you can think, I can do that too. So you get that sense of comfort and confidence. So moving on to my next question, and you touched up on this for a little bit, but in your experience, how has diversity sparked innovation?
You need a diverse room because we all have different ideas. And if you are ever part of a brainstorming session, you can sit in a room, and if you think the same way someone else is thinking, you're not going to accomplish innovation. Innovation is to be forward thinking. And the only way you can do that is if you have women in the room who are of different backgrounds, right? If you have men in the room who are open to listening and not feeling intimidated if a woman is going to speak up. You need diversity to spark innovation. There's no question about it. And my examples, I have, sat in rooms where men have talked over me and then we don't get anywhere. But then if I speak up and just ask, can you listen? Then an idea sparks and I'm like, you're right. Maybe we can make it better this way. Or even if you can't, just putting all those ideas together. And I think each of us brings our personal touch, right? So for instance, if I'm looking at our panel, culturally, you can bring your culture into a brainstorming session. You can bring your upbringing, your different environments, anything into that to innovate and to make something better. There's room to continue to bring diversity in and innovate. And that's the only way that technology is going to keep changing for the better.
A great point. I agree with 100% with what you say in terms of you need to be able to go into the room and have open-minded people. You need a different group of people with different ideas. They should not all think the same, because you're right. If you think the same as other people, you won't accomplish anything. You're forward thinking. You need the women in the room with different backgrounds.
Yes.
I worked in, I have experiences working in the operating room, and one of my favorite surgeons to work with, she was the chief of breast surgery, and she was a pioneer in her field. So in that case, it was kind of the other way around, where I felt intimidated to talk because she was so knowledgeable, so qualified, and she was just highly regarded. So, but you're right, you need forward thinking to move forward.
But also the best leaders listen. So you can be at the top of your game and you can be the best at it, but the only reason you're there is because you actually listened to get you to the next step. So.
Right, and you mentioned that earlier, where you need to be a good communicator, but also an active listener. So I met you in our diversity and inclusion meeting, and I learned a lot about you, how you formed this nonprofit organization, Watch Her Win, and how you did your community to greater opportunities. Can you please take the time to explain to us what Watch Her Win is and your involvement in it?
Yes. Well, Watch Her Win was created in 2019, incorporated, and it came from a place where I realized there was a lot of women being excluded because of their titles, because of their industry. Again, I'm a natural networker. I will jump in. I'll be part of any organization and fit my way in. But the events and programs that I was having, there was a lot of feedback. Well, like, this is great, but I don't have an MBA, or this is great because I'm not in healthcare IT. And what I realized is, like, I know how hard I work to get where I am. And I've had mentors, I've had sponsors, I have had a great support system, and everyone doesn't have that. So what can I do to create an organization to help women and even men, right? Because men have to be our allies, get to the next level, connect them to opportunities. And with a lot of work and a lot of perseverance and with the family support, I came up with Watch Her Win, because it's about us winning together. It's about, I've had experiences in my career where women have not supported me. And, no, they didn't look like me, but as a woman, I would expect someone to try to relate. And I've had experience where that didn't happen. And I know how that feels when you're ambitious and you want to do the right thing, but maybe the approach comes out wrong. So maybe I needed a coach at the time and I didn't get that. And that's why I watch her win, because for me personally, I want to see women win. I know what it is to be a mom. I know what it is to be a sister, a daughter, and then I know what it is to be in this male-dominated industry and feel like you're alone. And a lot of times, I brought my environment and my culture with me. I am from the Bronx, very proudly. I grew up in a, in a tough environment, not my home, but just the environment. And I brought that with me when I was younger to work, because I was like, I like what I'm doing. This is going to be my career. And if you want to give me the challenge, then I'm going to challenge you back. And trust and believe me, it has gotten me to where I am now, but it doesn't always feel good, because it's like, oh my goodness, I'm in this by myself. Because a lot of times your family is not going to understand your career trajectory. Nobody understood me being in telecom or IT. They were like, well, I thought you were going to be a lawyer. I was, but then I found this, and this is what I want to do. So we had a woman to even talk to about experiences and want to see each other win. I think that we will do great things, and it's not about counting men out. It's not. Men have a different knack. Men can go in and negotiate. Men can apply for a job and not have half of the skills and like, well, I'm applying for it anyway, right? Women constantly, we're constantly thinking about, well, I can't do this, so then I won't go there. Who's going to tell you, or who's going to tell that young person, or even who's going to tell that seasoned career person, like, you can do this. You don't need to have all those skills. So that is what Watch Her Win is about. It's about creating a community for us to continue to grow and support each other.
That's great. It's wonderful to see you making such an impact in the world and your community. Like you said, it's not about, how hard that you work personally to get to where you are. You've had mentors and sponsors and great support system. Not everyone has that. And that organization that you've built and founded is just something that allows people to have the opportunities that normally they wouldn't be accustomed to. You've provided that outreach, and it's funny that you say you're a natural networker. You'll jump in and be part of anything, because that means that you're just a natural born leader as well. That's just an innate leadership characteristic, in my opinion. But can you tell us some of the ways that your participants now are making a difference, or some of the events that you've held?
Yes. So I've held events such as financial planning, mental health events, resume workshops, and some of the participants, or all of the participants, they've created their own networks. So someone will come to a Watch Her Win event, connect, and then create their own network and start to build from there. And if someone can do that, I know that I'm doing my job. The information that I provide and the people that I connect, I cannot take it with me when I'm no longer on this earth. And I believe that we have to share everything that we have in us in order for people to grow. So I have connected people to build websites for other people. Business consultants, they've picked up clients through Watch Her Win participants. I mean, the connections span from New York to Chicago, honestly. And that makes me so proud that I'm not just a staple locally, I'm actually growing exponentially and nationally to make sure that difference is being made.
That's really great to hear, and you're clearly making a difference It's evident that you served as a leader in your organization to empower women to be their best selves. And hearing your talk is inspiring me as well. I want to talk a bit more about your career and your accomplishments on a personal level. What are the driving forces or stepping stones that got you to where you are today? You mentioned you had a mentor to help guide you, but what would you say you owe your success to?
Well, I would say initially, my driving force was my daughter. I was a young mom, and I know that. I feel like that's something that women don't talk about often, because you want to stay on a career track, right? But I wouldn't be in this career if I wasn't a young mom and I wasn't forced to go into an industry that I was like, I don't know what this is. And then I know a part of this question is, did I have a mentor? So starting out was Jackie Johnson, Jacqueline Johnson. She was my AVP at Planned Parenthood. And when I first was hired as her admin assistant, she told me straight from the jump, you are gonna manage this telecom system. So, you know, learn it. And I was just like, what? So here I am, no knowledge of telecom, no knowledge of being an administrator. I became a full Meridian/Avaya administrator for Planned Parenthood of New York City, where I had to manage the telecom system for all 3 sites and the mini sites. If a phone went down, they were calling Obi. I had to deal with the text. That gave me such an insight on this world of technology. I was like, oh, I have to keep going with this. This is where it's at. And it was a challenge. And I realized I actually like to be challenged. And, you know, looking back at that time, the talk about women in tech was non-existent. I was young, I was feisty. I was like, I'm going to get the knowledge any way I can. And there was this one technician. He was always so rude to me. And so one day I said, listen, you're gonna stop talking to me this way and you're gonna teach me everything you know. And he just wasn't shocked. I was like, and I'm not playing. That man taught me everything he knew about, you know, putting the Y's together, the T1, everything. And I took that, applied it to how I programmed, and then I applied it to how I managed this telecom system. Then I went into one of the, you know, major hospitals and worked just with a team of seasoned people who have been in the industry for so long, and just bringing my best self, right? Bringing my authentic self to my career has just helped me. And with that, my next mentor and sponsor is Leo Bowden. And, you know, at the time he had become the director. And I went to him straight away. I said, listen, I want to talk to you about this job description. I want to talk to you about some other items. And I brought it all to him. And he looked it over and he was like, okay. He was like, you know, you brought me all the work. I don't have to do any research. Certain things change, but the main thing is when I was going for a promotion after I graduated with my MBA, it was Leo Bowden who was my sponsor and spoke for me to make sure that I was going to get that promotion, hands down. And the drive that I had, the initiative that I take from being a single mom, then to being challenged, to being thrown into an industry I had no knowledge of, I took all of that with me and I kept taking it to each position. Now, granted, I do want to make it clear that every role that someone goes in is not meant for them, right? You can go into a role, you can try it out, and you're not always going to be as successful because you may not be passionate about it, or it just might not be a good fit. But no matter what, it won't take away your drive. And then the third person, you know, I have a bunch of mentors, but within this career, I'd actually, Jamie Nelson, she's the CIO of HSS. And, you know, I was interviewing and, you know, she brought my name up and we connected in a way because she saw how authentic I was. She saw how authentic I was as a mom. She saw how authentic I was as for being passionate and being in this industry, and how hard I was working to make sure that I was going to learn and be the best that I could be. So those three people have really mentored me and sponsored me in a way that has really helped my career. And I'm not going to say I owe my success to them, right? Because you kind of owe your success to yourself, because it depends on how hard you work for it. But I do acknowledge them wholeheartedly, because you need people like that in your corner, and you need people that don't always look like you. So when we talk about mentors, and, you know, Leo's a man, you know, Jackie, she's a Black woman that, you know, she was really my one in my career, my first example of seeing a Black woman in leadership. And hands down, she's, sorry for anyone who's listening, but she, hands down, she was the best vice president and the person I reported to in my entire career. She was the best. And, you know, and you have Jamie, who's, you know, she has had her own successes and she made it to become a CIO. And I still look at her. I'm like, I'm going to be there. I'm going to have the title of being a CIO somewhere. And I look at all of them to make sure that I keep going.
Those are some powerful statements that you made. It's awesome to see how people have mentored you and influenced you in all that you do. I think we can all agree on how passionate you are about growth on a professional and personal level, but also helping others grow as well. I think right now is a great time to check our chat and see if our audience had any questions for you. And I do see one question here. So Lucille asks, how do you encourage all participants to feel valued and heard?
Wow. You know, I usually tell someone to find their comfort zone and to find someone they're comfortable with, right? Speaking. And in that, I try to tell you to be as authentic as you can, because what I do realize, and being in corporate and just being in different industries, not everyone can deal with someone's authenticity. But be authentic and be your best self. So if you're your best self with your mom and your family, that same person, you take it to wherever else you need to go. Because what I find is, the way I am speaking right now, that's how I speak to my mom, and that's how I speak to my cousins, and that's how I speak to my daughter. She's like, Mom, we're not in the office, but that's my best self. So I present it at all times. So my advice would be to just present your best self at all times, no matter who you're with, no matter what company you're with. Some people will get it and accept it and love it. Some people will be like, oh my gosh, why are you trying to be like this? But it's not what you're trying to be, it's what you are. So hope that helps.
That was a great answer. And that was a great question from the audience. Obioma, much appreciation to you for sharing your insights. You've helped us all gain a better understanding of how important diversity and inclusion is in the workplace. In terms of the importance of women, I myself, I have a mother, I have a sister, and you know they have an important part of my life. And I also work in nursing, which is a female predominant field, and I respect how much women do for us, and I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone, our audience, and all our panelists for joining us today for this great event. And so I'd like to hand it over to Anthony Ferranti, our HIMSS New York State Chapter President, to offer some closing remarks. So I'll turn it over to you, Tony.
Thank you very much, Roy, and thank you, everybody, today. What a great presentation. I am pleased to say that I am the president of this great chapter, especially the Nursing and Diversity Committee, with the great job they've done in constantly bringing forth great presentations. Sorry for any technical difficulties that we had along the way. This will be recorded. You'll at least be able to hear everybody. And hopefully we'll be able to have our next one in the future be a little smoother than this. Our next event is now scheduled for the 18th of this month coming up, and it'll be on privacy, security, and compliance. Hopefully some folks can make that one. And then there's another one on the 19th. Look for those events on our website. Come and join us. And then after that, we go into December, and we have something scheduled for December 1st. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day, and we shall all talk soon. Thank you again, Olga, and the rest of the Diversity and Nursing Committee. We appreciate the great work you've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.